Praise the Lord. Good morning, everyone. Bom dia. Deus te abençoe. God bless you. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. It's good to see you today. I commend you for absorbing the time change. I hate the time change. How about you? Oh, it's just miserable. But would you turn with me in your bulletins? We have a few announcements that we'd like to make today. We want to say thank you. Obrigado to everyone who gave of their time and resources yesterday to make the chili cook-off fundraiser the great success that it was. Special thanks to all the members of our building project committee for all of their efforts. It was a great occasion, a lot of fun. We had many people here, and we just had a lot of fun, didn't we? Praise the Lord.
And you won.
Yes, that's true. My chili won. And it was blind taste testing too. Nobody knew it was mine. Safe to Shore Teen Ministry announcement. This Wednesday, there'll be another Arts and Crafts Project tutorial, part 2, with Mrs. Allie Goodwin. And she'll be there with my wife helping out that project. Missions. Our monthly missions offering will be Sunday, March 15th, and that goes to the support of all of our missionaries that you see on either wall of the sanctuary. Please continue to keep our missionaries in mind for your giving. Little bit of a change, as we're getting near our annual business meeting, the deacon board and myself, we've been going through all of the books and everything. And while we still contributed a very large amount of money to missions this past year, we did have a drop of about $4,000 in our missions giving from 2018 to 2019. So the missions giving took a decline. So just a reminder that if there's a way that you can help out with our missionaries, please remember that every dollar that you give to missions here in this church goes out to missions. We don't keep anything for overhead. A lot of organizations, you can give $1 and they use up to 60% of that dollar to fund their own administrative costs. We don't do that. We get 100% out to missions. So please keep that in mind. Next Sunday, for the ladies, this is the last day to register for the Brave Conference. Please see Lee Griggs or text her with any questions. Lee's phone number is 508-274-3506. So now you know it. It's there. You can't forget it. And so if you have any questions, just let her know. Men's ministry, this month it will be 7 p.m. Saturday, March 28th at Junior de Oliveira's house. Please continue to keep Junior in prayer. He just had a surgical procedure, so he is recovering from that as well. Also, too, please consider donating non-perishable food items to the Island Food Pantry. A purple drop box is located in the lower level hallway by that lower entrance, and you can just drop those items right into that box. And when it's full, we have someone who picks that up for the Island Food Pantry. And my wife and I, we are strong believers in food pantries because when we were in between churches, we went through a time where I was working full-time, but it was an entry-level job. I was making $11 an hour, and there was a church food pantry that helped us, kind of make ends meet, because we found that any kind of food stamp benefits, they give you enough for basically about 3 weeks out of every month. And so we always found there was more month than there was food sometimes. So we're big believers in food pantries and helping out when we can. So that said, let's stand to our feet and let's take our Bibles in our hands, and we're going to look into the Word of God today. Would you turn with me to the New Testament book of 1 Peter? 1 Peter chapter 4, and we're going to pick up at verse 1 and read through verse 11. As we're continuing to read through 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 4, beginning at verse 1. The Bible says, "So then, since Christ suffered physical pain, you must arm yourselves with the same attitude he had, and be ready to suffer too." I'm sorry, that's not very encouraging, is it? But it's the truth. "For if you have suffered physically for Christ, you have finished with sin. You won't spend the rest of your lives chasing your own desires, but you will be anxious to do the will of God. You have had enough in the past of the evil things that godless people enjoy, their immorality and lust, their feasting and drunkenness and wild parties, and their terrible worship of idols. Of course, your former friends are surprised when you no longer plunge into the flood of wild and destructive things they do. So they slander you. But remember that we will have to face God, who will judge everyone, both the living and the dead. That is why the good news was preached to those who are now dead. So although they were destined to die like all people, they now live forever with God in the Spirit. The end of the world is coming soon. Therefore, be earnest and disciplined in your prayers. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. Cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. Do you have the gift of speaking? Then speak as though God himself were speaking through you. Do you have the gift of helping others? Do it with all the strength and energy that God supplies. Then everything you do will bring glory to God through Jesus Christ. All glory and power to him forever and ever. Amen. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. There's a lot of good stuff in those 11 verses that I just shared with you that we read together, talking about sometimes we go through physical pain when we're breaking free of addictive sins. But once you go through that pain and get beyond that, you're free. And you're not going to go back to that anymore. That's what that first part is talking about. It's not talking about like what some people used to think, that you have to go whip yourself in a cold room somewhere and then that gets rid of your sin. That's not true at all. It's talking about the pain that we endure as we break free of those addictions. And of course, sometimes people wonder, what's going on with you? Why are you changing? What's happening in you? And sometimes they slander you. In our class Wednesday night, we just talked about how when they dug into Pompeii, that city in Italy that was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius, when they excavated the city, they found one house in 1962 that had written in charcoal on the side of the house that A, meaning somebody's name, is now a prisoner of the Christians and has strange ideas. And the interesting thing is that house where that was written on the side of the house, graffiti, was right across the street from a brothel in Pompeii. And so people believe that there was somebody who used to either work at that brothel or be a patron of that brothel, who came to faith in Jesus Christ and left that lifestyle and started following the Christian lifestyle. And so they think that that house right across the street from the brothel in Pompeii that had the graffiti on it was actually an early Christian house church. Isn't that tremendous? All the way back then, people were saying, what's going on with these people who are being changed by Jesus Christ? Well, the Bible says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And so he's still doing that same work today in people's lives. Amen? Amen. Let's pray together today. Father in heaven, we thank you today. We rejoice in you today. We exalt you today because, Jesus, you are still giving people the victory today. Victory over sin, victory over addictions, victory over destructive lifestyles, victory over heartache and pain and abuse and misuse that has occurred. Lord, you are working miracles in people's lives all the time. All the time. And we're believing you today for miracles here in this church body. Father in heaven, I pray a special blessing to be upon your people who have gathered themselves together today. We pray also a blessing for those who may be traveling, those who are ill today. Father, we just minister your grace and spirit to them in Jesus' name. We pray a blessing for all those who are watching this service online via our website. Lord, we pray blessing on them today. And so, Lord Jesus, we look to you, the author and finisher of our faith. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let's worship the Lord together, church. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah. 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 Thank you, Holy Spirit. We're going to change a few things and be obedient to the Spirit of the living God. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. We just bless you, God. Thank you for the brokenness. Thank you for the brokenness, God. Thank you for the... I know everybody said broken. Yes. He's breaking chains right now. And he's restoring us right now. Amen. Hallelujah. That's who our God is. Hallelujah. Just start thanking him and praising him right now. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Victory is mine. Victory is ours. Amen. Hallelujah.
who know Jesus Christ to speak life into their situation. They need Jesus. And the only Jesus they're going to get is through us. Amen? Come on now. So we got to speak life over our families, over our children in school, over the people on our job, over the people that God placed under us and in our lives. Amen. Come on, I want to hear you. We serve a good God. We serve a healing God. Vineyard was talking about that hour that we thought we lost. We thought we lost an hour. But we serve a God that gives us every hour. Amen. Amen. I want y'all to change your mindset about losing an hour. We're not losers. We don't lose anything. Amen. God has a plan and a purpose for everything that he does. Everything that he does. Hallelujah. There's a reason for every season. Amen. I don't know why, well, the Holy Spirit is saying, change your speech about everything over your life and anything that you say. Change your speech. Change your speech. Speak the word. Speak life. Speak love. Speak Jesus. Speak Jesus. We serve an awesome God. Tests and trials will come. But we have a mighty God by our side that's going to get us through those tests and those trials. And more importantly, there are people watching us go through those tests and trials that needs to know that my Jesus, who can be your Jesus, got me through. Amen. Walked me through. Carried me through. Sometimes we do have to be carried through. But his right hand upholds us. That's what the word says. And I believe it. I believe it. Amen. Holy Spirit, have your way. Have your way, Holy Spirit. if you seek me, you will find me. He's here. He's here. The presence of the living God. Presence of the living God is here. Yes, He's here. We have so much to be grateful for. One thing I can think of is He died for me. He sacrificed His life for me. And if He doesn't do anything else, it's all right with me. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hallelujah. He saved my life. He dug me out of the miry clay. He washed me, washed me, washed me, washed me, washed me white as snow. I always tell people I don't look like my testimony. If you only knew, after church asked me, and I'll tell you what He's done for me, He can do for you. He's no respecter of persons. He's an on-time God. He's an on-time God. He's an on-time God. Yes, He is. Hallelujah. 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 He's an on-time God. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. I feel strongly the Lord wants you to think upon this, that are you really His? Have you given yourself fully to Him? He says, you are mine. Every single one of you in here, from the littlest child, that you are mine. And I made you. You're my handicraft, created for good works. And you are not your own. You may think you are, because we go around life in our own way, but no, you are not your own. You were bought with a price, purchased with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. You are not your own. Are you fully mine? That is the question to ask yourself, because He is a God of wonders and amazing. But for that, you have to be fully His. So ask yourself that and pray about it even in your own time. Are you fully God's, or are you holding on to yourself? Don't do that. Be fully God's, because He has awesome plans. You are His handiwork, created for good works. Amen.
Hallelujah. Just meditate on the Word of God and the message that God has given us. Oh, how I need Thee. Oh, how I need Thee. Oh, how I need You, Jesus. Nothing can separate us. Oh, how I need Thee. Oh, how I need Thee, Lord. Tell the Lord how you need Him. I want
Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah, Lord. We praise the Lord this morning. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We thank you today, Lord Jesus, for the message that has been given in this worship, Lord. For the message given through our sister Donna. That you have poured yourself out to us. You want us to give all of us back to you. So we yield ourselves to you, Jesus. Today, Lord, we give our hearts over to you. Hallelujah. In your hearts, join me in this prayer if you're not already. Lord, we yield our hearts to you, Lord, with all of everything that is within us. Jesus, we need you. We need you, Lord. Hallelujah. Prepare us today, Lord, for what the Spirit wants to do today. In Jesus' name. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We worship you and we praise you today, Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Praise your name. Hallelujah, Lord. Hallelujah.
Break me down, Lord, and make me a new Jesus.
Yes.
Make me a new Jesus. Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Make me a new Lord. I want to look more like you, Jesus. I want to resemble you more, Jesus. Break me, Lord. Break me, Lord. Build me a new God. Break me, Lord, in the Lord Jesus. Lord, let nothing hinder me, Lord Jesus. Want to be more like you, Jesus. Every new right spirit within me.
I believe God wanted me to share something that in me He's doing a deep work of healing that I didn't even know I needed. And the reason He wants me to share this is He wants everybody here to know that He is the Redeemer. And part of that is He does redeem your past. He does go back. Hallelujah. And He redeems it. He says He will restore the years of the locust and the cankerworm. Yes, hallelujah. And even though the past is the past, He goes back and He heals what is broken. Yes, yes. He's the God who heals. And I didn't even know that I needed this healing. And the only reason I'm sharing it is because some of you need to open up your heart for this healing, because it's here today. He's here today to do a healing work. Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Praise you, Lord. Hallelujah. 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 That is a very, very true word. You know, and Liz and I, we've walked through that in our lives. That, you know, God will bring you to a place where, you know, you think you're doing okay simply because you've managed to almost forget your past. But yet the wound is still there, you know, or like when I counsel people, I sometimes say, you know, you may, it's a little crude, but it's a good illustration, you'll remember it. You may flush the toilet, but it's still down in the septic tank. And eventually, the septic tank can't hold anymore. And it's going to start to back up into your home. And that's what happens in our hearts. You know, with all of the hurts of the past, the unresolved damage that people have done to us, that we've done to ourselves and to others, eventually it backs up into our life. And Jesus wants to come in, and I've used this illustration before. You know, we let Jesus into our hearts, you know, where he lives now. And we want Jesus into our living room, maybe our dining room, where everything's nice and cleaned and decorated well. But Jesus says, wait a minute, I bought your heart. I bought you. I paid for your home, so I want into the attic. I want into the closets. I want into the basement. You know, and we're like, oh, you don't want to see what's in my closet. You don't want to see what's in my basement. You don't want to see my attic. But Jesus says, no, let me in. Because I'm not coming to destroy. I'm coming to cleanse. I'm coming to heal. I'm coming to set free. Isn't that beautiful? That is so awesome. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. God bless you, church. God bless you so much. We love you so much. You may be seated. God bless you. Deus te abençoe. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let's have our ushers come forward. We're going to receive our morning tithes and offerings. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. I'm going to ask Donna Vogt, the coordinator of our prayer ministry, to take us in prayer for this tithe and this offering. And by the way, Monday nights we do have prayer meeting here at 6:30. I want to encourage you to come out for that.
Praise the Lord. We are blessed beyond words today, Lord. Thank you for your wonderful presence. We're just so grateful. Help us to continue, Lord, to receive everything you have for us today and walk, Lord God, in the newness of what you're doing and the fullness, Lord God. And thank you for providing for us all that we need, Lord God, and help us to use it all wisely and joyfully give back to you what you have already given to us, Lord. We thank you for all the things that lives that we can touch through the giving, the missionaries and all those that we get to touch, Lord, through the giving. So bless this offering, bless our hearts as we give, and please, God, continue to supply our needs that we can, we are stable and financially wise. I pray for that wisdom, O Lord.
How is everybody? Doing good today? Yeah? Are you excited to find out what your teachers have ready for you downstairs? I don't know. Well, you know what? I want to tell you that we love you and that Jesus loves you. God loves you. So don't ever forget that, okay? All right. We're going to pray now, all right? All right, let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you for these children. I pray that you will bless them. Lord, there's so much garbage out there that attacks our children possible. Lord, I pray that you help their parents, Lord Jesus, to just teach them about you, Lord, and help their teachers today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. God bless you guys. Love you so much. You can head right downstairs to your classes. Your teachers are ready for you. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. I apologize. It looks like that neither of our translators are here today, and so I apologize that we don't have the translation service available for anyone who would like that. But we're going to look into God's Word today. So would you please turn with me to Titus chapter 3. In the New Testament, Paul's letter to Titus Titus chapter 3, and we're going to look at just one verse, verse 12. The Bible says, and I'm reading from the New International Version, Paul writes to Titus and he says, "As soon as I send Artemis or Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, because I have decided to winter there." Let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank you, Lord, for your word, that you said that not one jot or tittle would pass away until all is fulfilled, and that everything written in your word was inspired by the Holy Spirit, sovereignly directed by you to be recorded for our benefit. So help us, Lord, to open this scripture and to receive from it the benefit that you have for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Over the past few weeks, we've been talking about walking with God through the winter. We've been looking at all of the different scriptures in the Bible that mention the winter time in some way, and we're learning lessons from that. Specifically, we're talking about not the winter of the outside, and isn't it fun here on the island, here in southern New England? We go all winter with almost no snow, and then on the verge of spring, we get snow. Don't you love that? We're not talking about the physical winter. We're talking about the inner winter, the winter of the soul, the difficult seasons of life and of faith that come to everyone. Everyone, every Christian goes through these times. Now, out of all that we've talked about over the past few Sundays, what is probably the most important question is this: where will you spend the winter? Where will you spend the winter? That's the title of the message today. Where will you stay the winter? Paul wrote to Titus, he says, "As soon as I send Artemis or Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, because I have decided to winter there." Paul was a traveler. He traveled around to different churches and different cities preaching. But during the winter time, you didn't travel much. And so you would choose a place to stay for the winter time. And Paul says, this winter I'm going to stay in Nicopolis. And he says to Titus, come and spend the winter here with me. Where will you stay the winter? I'm going to do a little poll right now. Little question. If you didn't have work responsibilities or a home here or whatever, or you were financially able, how many of you would go to Florida for the winter? Jamaica. Even better than Florida, right? A lot of you, a few people said, no, I don't want to go there. And this is probably why you don't want to go there, because Florida is such a famous place to spend the winter. Florida, I did a little research and I found this out. This is crazy. Florida attracts 100 million visitors from around the world every year. So that's probably why you don't want to go to Florida. You know, you got 100 million extra people coming in from all over the world. Since 1970, Florida's population has grown 209%, with 80% of that growth being people moving into Florida. You go to Florida, you find very few people who are actually born in Florida. Mostly it's everybody's moved in. Between 2005 and 2015, more Canadians moved to Florida than did people from New York. And New York, out of all the states in the United States, sends the most people to Florida. But more Canadians moved to Florida than people from New York. And it's not surprising, because the average temperature in Orlando, Florida for December, January, February, and March is about 75 degrees. And the average temperature in Ottawa, Canada for those same months is about 29 degrees. So you can see why so many Canadians decide to go to Florida for the winter. Why do people do that? Well, the Bible says, an interesting observation, it says that the children of this world are wiser than the children of the kingdom, the children of light. Sometimes the people who are not believers in God live out their lives with more wisdom than we do who are believers in God. The idea here is that if we're going to go through a winter, if you're going to have to go through a winter of the soul, then you might as well stay in the best place possible, right? If you're going to go through a difficult time in life, a winter of the soul, a time of darkness, a time of storms in life, you might as well be in the best place you can be. And that's what this message is about today. Where will you stay the winter? In what was probably the final winter of his life, the Apostle Paul wrote to his protege Titus and said, "Come, stay with me in Nicopolis." Now, not everyone has the resources to do that, but physically to go to Florida or Jamaica or wherever and spend the whole winter there enjoying nice weather. Well, all of us, all of you, have the opportunity and the resources in Jesus Christ to choose where you will spend the winter of your soul. You have that opportunity. You have that choice. You have those resources. So, title again is, Where Will You Stay the Winter? Let's look at Titus chapter 3, verse 12 again. He says, "As soon as I send Artemas or Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, because I have decided to winter there." I want to share with you this thought, that as a Christian, Jesus has given you the choice as to where you will stay during the winter of your soul. In spiritual victory or in spiritual defeat. That's the choice that we have. That's the choice that God has given to each of us. Where will you spend the winter of your soul? Will you spend it in victory or will you spend it in defeat? You see, we have to ask the question, why? Out of all of the cities in the Mediterranean world at that time, all of the cities of the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire was quite advanced technologically for its time. They had glass windows. They had in-floor radiant heating in their buildings. They had running water, hot and cold. They had public bathhouses and spas. They had all this amazing technology for that time. So out of all of the cities of the Roman Empire, why did Paul choose Nicopolis? Nicopolis was located on the west coast of Greece on the Adriatic Sea, so its climate was no different from any other city around the Mediterranean. It wasn't any kind of special resort city where you go here because the climate is really, really good. It was no different than any other city. Nicopolis had been founded by the first Roman Emperor Augustus, and he filled the city with temples and monuments to himself. So why would Paul go there? I mean, you go to this city, and the whole city, everything in the city is built to commemorate a now dead Roman emperor. Why there? Also, we find in the Bible there's no letter to the church in Nicopolis. I mean, we got a letter to the church in Corinth, a letter to the Galatians, a letter to the Ephesians. You got all these letters to all these different churches, but there's no mention anywhere of any Christian church in Nicopolis. So why is Paul there? There's no reason at all in the natural for Paul to choose Nicopolis. So why did he spend this winter in Nicopolis? The answer, I believe, is in what Nicopolis represented. See, I believe it was the Holy Spirit who specifically led Paul to spend the final winter of his life in that particular city for no other reason than the name of that city. You see, Nicopolis in Greek literally means city of victory. Niko in Greek means victory, and polis meant city. It was city of victory. Augustus Caesar had built this entire city and moved people in to live there simply to commemorate his victory in the naval battle of Actium over the alliance of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Augustus Caesar won the battle, and by winning the battle, he became the first Roman emperor. City of victory. So I think the message that God is sending to us through Paul is that when you are in the winter of your soul, when you are facing the storms of life, the difficult times, the dark times, the painful times, you're going to want to go spend the winter in the best place possible. And the best place possible out of anywhere else is the city of victory. To find the victory that God has for you in the middle of that winter, in the middle of that storm, in the middle of that pain, and decide, I'm going to live here in this victory. Sounds wonderful, but there's a problem. The problem is that during the winter of your soul, Satan will offer you a chance to stay not in Nicopolis, but in another city. Satan will try to woo you away from Nicopolis, and he'll offer you a place to stay in Necropolis. Necropolis meant city of the dead. Again, polis meant city, and nekros meant dead. So God wants you to spend the winter in Nicopolis, but Satan will want you to spend the winter of your soul in Necropolis, the city of dead. Look at what happened with Job back in Job chapter 2, verses 7 through 9. It says, So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. Basically, Job's wife was so distressed over what had happened. In just a couple of days, Job's entire business was gone. All of his savings were gone. There's 7 children gone, and now Job's health is gone. And his wife, in her distress and probably in being used then as a tool of Satan, says to him, Why are you still trying to follow God if God has allowed this to happen? What you need to do, Job, is just tell God, forget you, and then kill yourself. Commit suicide. End it, Job. That's what curse God and die means. That's what Satan offered Job. Job, you're in a winter. It's too painful, too difficult. Go live in Necropolis. You stay away from Nicopolis. Remember what Jesus said about Satan. Jesus said about Satan that the thief comes only to steal and to kill and to destroy. You see, Satan wants to steal the blessings, the victories, the testimonies that God has given you. He wants to not only steal those things from you, he wants to kill you spiritually so that you are no longer an effective part of God's kingdom, no longer a producing part of God's kingdom, no longer a fruitful part of God's kingdom. And not only does he want to do that, he wants to destroy your legacy so that all you have accomplished with God becomes tarnished and warped and defamed in the eyes of people, so that when people look at your life, they say, it's all worthless. That's what Satan wants to do to all of us as Christians. Some of you probably don't know this individual. Many of you do, though. How many of you remember the story of Jimmy Swagger? If you recognize his name, you probably instantly think about the televangelist who became hateful and vindictive in his attacks on fellow Christian ministers and ministries that were competing with his ministry. And then finally, his 2 prostitution scandals that he was caught in 1989 and again in 1991. Maybe you remember how the Assemblies of God said you have to go through a 2-year rehabilitation process, and he said no. And he broke from the Assemblies of God and went independent. We remember those things. But almost no one remembers that at one time his ministry was seen on 3,000 TV and cable stations every week. Almost no one remembers that at one time the Bible college he founded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had over 1,400 students. Almost no one remembers that at one time his ministry financed the building of churches and schools all over the world. But now it's all gone. It's gone. It's gone. If you watch his program today, it's like you hear a few minutes of preaching and then it's an offer to send in money to get this book or that book. And you hear another few minutes of ministry, and then it's another offer. Because they're desperate to hang on and to keep going. See, Satan came in and stole and killed and destroyed in that situation. And it's so tragic because it hurt so many people in the church. And in fact, my own family, my extended family, the reason why we became born-again Christians was because of Jimmy Swaggart's ministry back in the early and mid-1980s. I think back to other people that I knew and I pastored, people that I love and respect who encountered a winter of the soul and chose to stay in Necropolis, the city of death, rather than go live in Nicopolis, the city of victory. There was a man, I'm not going to say their names because, you know, many of these people are still alive, and some I know watch over the internet at times, and others who know them watch over the internet, our services. But there was a man in the church who I pastored for a while, and after a failed business venture, the end of his parents' marriage, and the death of his niece, he was in a winter of the soul. A lot of difficulties came. He abandoned his faith in Jesus, abandoned his wife, abandoned his children, and he entered into a homosexual relationship. He went and lived in the city of death, spiritually. There was another man that I pastored in the church who, after a failed marital relationship, abandoned his faith in Jesus and turned to alcohol. He left the church and drifted away. There was another woman in the church that we pastored who, after a failed marriage, became desperate. And in desperation, she married an abusive man who was not even a Christian. And within 1 year, that marriage was destroyed because he was out committing adultery on her and wouldn't provide properly for her and for her child. There was another woman that I pastored who, after a failed marriage, remarried in haste, in desperation, and later discovered her new husband was molesting her daughter. There's a sub-message there, bonus feature today. And I think the Holy Spirit wants me to share this with you, especially to the ladies of the church. If you go through a failed relationship, don't make a decision out of desperation for another relationship. Because Liz and I have seen too many times that kind of decision leads to more disaster. As great as the pain may be, stay in Nicopolis. Stay in the city of victory. Stay close to Jesus and wait on him to provide a new blessing in your life that will be stable and will be a blessing to you. And if you have children, to your children as well. Now back to the message. So when you're facing those storms of life, choose victory. Choose Nicopolis. Don't choose death. You see, look at all the things that the Bible says. Joshua 24:15. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Joshua there said, I'm making a decision. I am living in Nicopolis. Job made that decision too. In Job 13:15, he said about God, though he slay me, yet will I serve him. He says, I don't understand him. I don't know why. I got questions for God, but I'm still going to follow him. That's victory. Psalm 118, verse 17, the songwriter said, I will not die, but live and proclaim what the Lord has done. That's victory. I love Micah 7, verse 8. There's somebody speaking, a believer, speaking to Satan right here. He says, do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. That's someone in victory. The city of Nicopolis that Paul stayed in was filled with monuments to Augustus Caesar. The city of victory that you stay in is filled with the monuments of faith to the victory that Jesus Christ has won for you. What monuments are we talking about? Well, when you're in the dark times, when you're in the storms of life, when you're in the difficulty, when you're in the winter of the soul, go to Nicopolis in your own heart and begin to walk around, walk through the streets, walk through the city parks, look at the monuments that are there. You say, what are you talking about, Pastor? I'm talking about the monuments to the testimonies of what God has done in your past. I'm talking about the miracles that God has done in your past. I'm talking about the breakthroughs and the blessings that God has given you in your past. I'm talking about the answered prayers that God has given you in your past. Go back in your mind and rehearse all that God has done for you. Visit those monuments in Nicopolis and you realize, if God did this for me in the past, time and time and time and time again, he's going to do it for me again. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. So choose where you're going to stay the winter. Back to Titus chapter 3, verse 12. Look at this. It says, as soon as I send Artemis and Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, because I have decided to winter there. Look what he says to Titus. He says, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis. See, as a Christian, Jesus has given you the choice as to where you will stay during the winter of your soul. With trusted friends or all alone. Will you go through the winter of your soul alone? Or will you invite some trusted friends to come join you in Nicopolis during the winter and stay with you through that time? You see, sometimes we get the wrong idea when we read the Bible. We look at people like the Apostle Paul, and we get this idea that he was kind of like the lone hero, like John Wayne or Jason Bourne, you know? The one guy who's like the spiritual Superman who's able to go in and just take out all the enemies and fix all the problems all by himself. But when you look a little closer, we find that Paul loved and built relationships with people all the time, especially his fellow Christians. And yes, there were times when people betrayed him, abandoned him, and hurt him. In 2 Timothy, Paul mentions how Demas had deserted him. In 2 Corinthians, Paul mentions about how some Christians were spreading lies about him out of jealousy of his ministry. And I'm sure that hurt Paul deeply. And those things will happen. But neither he nor we should ever allow the hurts that we receive from people to turn into a reason to withdraw from relationships with people, especially Christians. Why is it do so many Christians run away from each other when they get hurt? Come into church, we build relationships with people, and somebody hurts us. They say something, they do something. And almost always the first reaction among Christians is to run away. Why? Why do we do that? I think we run because we fear more hurt. But I want to share with you this thought, that whenever you run, you've been left hurting. You're still hurting. The hurt is still there. It's not resolved. It doesn't help. The only way to be healed of hurt is to run toward each other, not away from each other. It's the only way to do it. I think of the story of back when I was 20 years old, I got a hernia hauling 5-gallon buckets of paint up and down ladders. And, you get a hernia, and you're like, oh, I don't like this, but I don't like the idea of having to go to the doctor. I don't like the idea of surgery, and all that. So maybe I'll just wait and it'll go away on its own. Well, it doesn't go away. It gets worse. Maybe I'll find a way where I can live with it. I remember reading about, I can get a truss and wear that for the rest of my life, and I don't have to go to an operation. But that's not good either. That can cause problems too. Finally, I reached a place where I said, you know what? I've got to go to the doctor. And I'm 20 years old, and I go to the doctor, and I walk into the clinic, and it's a woman doctor. And I've got a hernia as a guy, okay? It starts then. Then I go to the surgeon, and I go to the hospital, and, they make you take off all your clothes and put on that cotton flimsy that doesn't close up in the back properly. And then all the humiliation begins. Then once you're in the hospital, it's like everybody sees you with nothing on. All the nurses, all the doctors, the people in the hallway, they take you out to walk down the hallway after your operation. You got a nurse here, and you've got the IV here, and you got your cotton flimsy that isn't buttoned right in the back, and they got you, keep walking, keep walking. There's everybody else in the hallway laughing at you as you go down the hallway. But all that was necessary to get better, to be healed. The moral of that story is we've got to humble ourselves. We've got to get rid of our pride in order to be healed, especially when we're hurt. by brothers and sisters in the church. Paul writes in Titus 3:12, after spending 2.5 chapters telling Titus how to select qualified pastors, which means that there were unqualified people that Titus had to unselect. So there were unpleasant things that had to happen. There were people who had to be dismissed from their positions. He tells Titus to rebuke lazy Christians. He tells Titus to teach Christians how to live out their Christianity in whatever place life has placed them. And some people had very unpleasant situations in life. Some people in the Roman Empire who were Christians were born slaves and they were stuck being slaves. And then he tells Titus to make sure that you are teaching a high moral standard for Christians to live by. All of those things required Christians to put aside personal offenses and to grow up. And you know what? God is requiring the same thing of us. To put aside all of the personal offenses and to grow up, because after all, the universe doesn't revolve around us. It revolves around Jesus. Right? He's the center. We're not. Look at what Paul says to Titus here. He says, Titus, you've dealt with all of this mess, all of this fallout, all of these problems in the church. Now, do your best to come to me in the city of victory and spend the winter here. Paul is inviting Titus to spend the winter with him in victory. So when you find yourself in the winter of your soul, in the dark times, in the difficult times, in the storms of life, don't try to suck it up and go it alone. One of the worst sayings that there are out there, you find it sometimes on office walls with a pretty picture. You ever see that in secular workplaces? They put up all the motivational quotes. They have the pretty picture, then they got some quote in there. One of those quotes is, "Whatever won't kill you makes you stronger." How many of you have heard that one? You know what? That's a lie. Because there are some things in life, it may not kill you, but it may leave you crippled. It's not going to make you stronger. It's going to make you weaker. That's why we need Jesus. So don't try to go it alone with the winter of the soul. Be sure to invite other people into your life as a Christian. Reach out to people. Don't come to church and sit there, nobody's reaching out to me. Nobody's being friendly to me. Nobody said hello to me today. Nobody called me all week. I didn't even get an email. I got lots of emails from Amazon, but I didn't get any emails from anybody in the church. The Bible says, if you want friends, you must show yourself friendly. You've got to reach out by faith. Got to reach out. Connect with people. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, James 1:19 and 20. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. You see, our human nature and our culture that we live in tends to make us slow to listen and quick to speak and quick to anger, especially during times of difficulty, discomfort, and distress, a winter of the soul. Have you ever read Islanders Talk? You got a lot of people who are slow to listen, but quick to speak and quick to anger. People hear something on the news, text that in there. Somebody sees something on Facebook, well, I am going to unfriend you. We're so quick to do those things, but we're slow to listen. Tom Rainer has compiled some reasons for church fights and divisions in America. These are real stories sent to him by other pastors. And he picked like the top 25. And I've only picked a few so as to not bore you with them. But here's one. It says some church members left the church because one church member hid the vacuum cleaner from them. It resulted in a major fight and split. And Tom Rainer's comment was, I think those people left to form First Electrolux Assembly of God. You know? Another church experienced a major conflict when the youth ministry borrowed a crock pot that had not been used for years. Oh, a crock pot in the kitchen. Gone. Another church experienced at a business meeting a 45-minute heated argument over the type of filing cabinet to purchase. Black or brown, 2, 3, or 4 drawers. Another church, this is the best one. Another church had a dispute over whether the church should allow people to wear black t-shirts. Why? Because black is the color of the devil. And you think of the ridiculous things that people argue about, that people get upset about. But the point that Tom Rainer made is that all these funny stories like that, those were just the triggers. The real issues were underneath and had been going on for a long time. It was just that something set it off. And usually it was something very ridiculous. So we got to be reaching out to each other. And so when you're in a difficult spot, when you're in a dark spot, don't try to go alone. Reach out to your brothers and sisters. You see, no matter what happens, I want you to remember this. This is serious now. No matter what happens, if I drop dead tomorrow, if, God forbid, a terrible lawsuit comes and Vineyard Assembly of God ceases to exist because of the lawsuit, if persecution comes, if an earthquake in the Cape Verde Islands produces a tsunami that hits Martha's Vineyard and erases everything on the island down to the dirt, I want you to remember this, that the most precious resource you have after a living relationship with God through faith in Jesus Christ are your Christian brothers and sisters. Churches in China right now are being terribly persecuted. The Chinese government is cracking down on Christianity because they fear the rapid growth of Christianity. There are churches where the pastors have been arrested. Key people have been arrested. People's cell phones and computers have been confiscated so the government can see who their contacts are in the church. Yet the churches are still gathering together to fellowship with each other, to worship together, to encourage each other, to pray together. Recently, an American minister went to China as a tourist, but in reality he had contacts with the underground Chinese church and they had invited him over to teach. And he said that the Chinese Christians were like, we want to pray that China becomes like America because you have freedom of worship. And this American pastor looked at the Chinese Christians and said, don't pray that. He says, pray that we become like you. And they said, what do you mean? And he said, you people, some of you took a train for 13 hours to get to this place, to hear this teaching and to have this fellowship. Some of you have sat for hours on a hardwood floor in an un-air-conditioned room. He said in America, if a sermon goes longer than 40 minutes, people want to leave. If there's not proper air conditioning or heat, people don't come. If there aren't comfortable chairs, sorry, we got you comfortable chairs. People don't want to stay. He said, I am praying that the American church becomes like you.
Amen.
So the question is, where will you stay the winter? You see, the Chinese church may be undergoing terrible persecution, but they're in the city of victory. They're in Nicopolis. So where will you go? Nicopolis or Necropolis? The city of victory or the city of death? Deuteronomy 30, verse 15. See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live, and that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him, for the Lord is your life. Amen. Would you stand together with me, church? God bless you so much. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. 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 The Bible says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Are you still living today? Then let's praise the Lord today. Praise you, Jesus, for the victory. Thanks be to God who always gives us the victory through Jesus Christ our Lord. We praise you together today. We worship you today. We bless your name. We praise your name. Hallelujah. 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 Praise you, Lord. Right now, all over this room, if there's anybody here where this message, you say, this was for me. I've been walking through some storms. I've been walking through the winter. I need some brothers and sisters to come around and begin to pray for me. Would you just hold your hand right up, and we'll have some folks come around and pray for you. We've got Tracy. We've got Dwayne. We got all kinds of people. We've got Loria back there. We got Dominic. Let's get some folks around those people. Keep your hand up. We'll get some people around you, and we'll start praying for you. Hallelujah. You know, go ahead and tell folks. Don't be afraid to tell them, this is what's on my heart. And begin to pray. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus. Praise you, Lord. Praise you, Lord. Paris, could you come and just play something softly on the guitar for us? Hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is the church in action. This is Christianity at work right now. Hallelujah. 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 Let's get some folks around our brother here. He's got his hand up. Hallelujah. Let's get some men around our brother here to lift him up and to pray for him. Awesome. Thank you, Roy. Hallelujah. Praise you. Praise you. Hallelujah. Thank you, Pastor Ron. Hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus. God is with us right now. Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Glory to God in the highest. Hallelujah. Glory to you, Jesus. Hallelujah. 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 Oh, hallelujah. Remember to not be afraid to invite people into your winter. And invite them to stay with you in victory in the winter. Hallelujah. Don't be afraid of relationships within the church with your brothers and sisters. Hallelujah. Jesus is with you. Jesus is with you. Hallelujah. We bless you and we praise you together today, Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord. Hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We love you, Jesus. Hallelujah. So good to us, Lord. Hallelujah. 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 I know we've had some first-time visitors with us today. If this is your first time here, would you just hold up your hand? We have a gift for you. We want to give that to you. God bless you, folks. So good to have you with us. Deus te abençoe. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. We welcome you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I hope that you were blessed today. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Hallelujah. 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 Praise you, Jesus. Praise you.
I want to encourage you. Sometimes you don't realize how God works throughout your life. When I was a new Christian, 50 years ago, I was taking care of a family of 7 children, and one little girl was like my life. And she didn't fit anywhere, and I just loved on her. Years later, she has talked to me. She now is the woman who has made it possible for me to go home tomorrow, to leave the Vineyard and go start my new life, being a missionary for Jesus to my family. I can't thank God enough that the seed I sowed in this little girl's life 20 years, 50 years ago, and now she is the very person who is holding my hand and bringing me home. And she loves Jesus with all her heart. She's a prayer warrior. And I think I had one little seed to help that with. You don't know how God is weaving people's lives into your life and you into others. Keep being God's light.
Amen. Amen. This is Joan's last official Sunday here. So today they're going to be loading the moving truck for her. So if you can help load up